Now welcome to another lightning response video where we'll once again cover a couple of related comments, starting with this one from Taryn M, who said, "Hey Thor, why are Thrawn's forces so depleted? Why are the Night Sisters so subservient to him? Thrawn is a super genius with an IQ of 1,000,000,000. Why is he still in another galaxy? Are you telling me he couldn't build 7 hyperdrives in all that time? Where are the shipyards and space whale dissection facilities? Why don't the stormtroopers all have shiny new armor?" It's because, for whatever reason, Thrawn is resource poor, and they make that very clear. Thrawn isn't just smart, he is frugal. The answer to why Ezra is still alive is simple. The expense that would need to be paid to kill Ezra would be more than the value gained from killing him. You state over and over in your video that Ezra is just one Jedi, and I think that is exactly the reason Thrawn hasn't killed him. You go to great lengths to lay out exactly why Thrawn should be able to kill Ezra, how little of a threat Ezra represents, and that's why he isn't dead. Well, here's the thing. The value in Thrawn having killed Ezra when he had the chance, when it would have been relatively easy to do so given Ezra's circumstances, well, that will be immeasurable when at some point down the road, Ezra plays a part in stopping and or killing Thrawn. That is my biggest issue with it. It's not about how big of a threat he is right now. It's how big of a threat he has been before and how much of one he could be again. All of which Thrawn would know and understand and figure into his equations in regards to what to do about him. I mean, we're talking about a guy who summoned a pack of Purrgil that essentially dismantled his entire fleet and carted him off to a whole other galaxy. He is the reason Thrawn is in this position in the first place, and if Ezra ever escapes this galaxy, however unlikely Thrawn may think that is, he will again be a powerful enemy, and one who has proven before he will do anything and everything to stop you. That's not someone you ever just ignore, in my opinion. But anyway, that is my closing argument on that conversation, and I want to discuss those questions you brought up in the first half of your comment, the ones that basically ask why hasn't Thrawn, well, not necessarily conquered this whole other galaxy, but why after 10 years isn't he in a better position at the very least? Why is his ship falling apart, and his stormtroopers or his night troopers, why are they all bandaged up? And the first question I think we have to ask is, how similar is this galaxy to the Star Wars galaxy, the original one I mean? Are there countless alien races with technologies similar to or on par with the other galaxy, or even beyond their technology? Is this galaxy more advanced? Is it less advanced? Or is it maybe about equal to the well-known original galaxy? Also, is there a central government of some kind? And is it a good one like the Republic or a bad one like the Empire? Or are there maybe many different factions that either kind of get along for the most part or don't really get along at all, and there is constant war in this galaxy? That it takes the name Star Wars a bit more literally than even the original one does? Is Thrawn having to, fend off constant warlord attacks, for example, who want his ship and his technology from the other galaxy, assuming they even know he comes from another galaxy? Or maybe there's virtually nothing here at all. Maybe it's a dead galaxy with a bunch of dead worlds because something very, very, very bad is here that the Night Sisters are trying to flee from, and that Thrawn has done everything he can to keep at bay while he just survives. And personally, I get the impression the Night Sisters once were a pretty big deal in this galaxy, not just on this one planet. I think Thrawn refers to them having a kingdom at one point, and I do wonder if again that stretched well beyond this one world, if unlocking hyperspace travel thanks to those Purrgil, if it allowed them to all but conquer this galaxy way, way back in the day, if they're not unlike the Rakata, if they had their own sort of infinite empire even, that they had dark magic and hyperspace travel and no one could stop them, and they basically brought the whole galaxy to heel until something finally rose up to stop them. And I don't mean a disease or something along those lines which stopped Rakata, but maybe something along the lines of a Jedi Order, which is why the Great Mothers clearly aren't a fan of the Jedi from the other galaxy, why they smell bad. They reek of a past defeat, you could say. And who knows, maybe the Jedi-like order in this galaxy was corrupted over time. Maybe they fell to the dark side and brought great ruin and destruction to this galaxy. Perhaps this power that Baylan hears calling to him, or whatever he thinks is here based on these old stories he used to hear as a child in the Jedi Temple, I'm assuming. Whatever this thing is that he essentially referred to as the beginning, maybe that's these fallen Jedi-like beings that stopped the Night Sisters back in the day, and why the Night Sisters originally fled to the original Star Wars galaxy. And that's also why they're going back now, bringing with them containers that look a whole lot like coffins, because they have some sort of plan to repopulate their kind once more in the other galaxy. Either way, whatever is going on here, it does seem, based on Thrawn's condition or the condition of his ship and his troopers, as well as the eagerness of the Great Mothers to leave, it seems like something is an issue here that they cannot handle. And like I was saying before, if we're already showing Thrawn was unable to get a foothold here in this galaxy, it better be something pretty formidable that kept him on his back foot. I already feel like people who don't know this character may be getting the sort of wrong impression of him, and that Baylan right now seems like a much, much more interesting and competent antagonist than Thrawn. But anyway, let's move on to another question that relates to this one, which comes to us from Mike Patton, who asked, "Hey Thor, how cool would it have been if the great power that Baylan senses was Snoke? Snoke had conquered this galaxy and rules it completely, and has grown bored with no new challenges. These visitors from another galaxy show Snoke that there is a new galaxy to conquer with Force wielders. This trip to Peridia shows Snoke where and how to get to the Star Wars galaxy, and is responsible for his appearance in the sequel trilogy. Of course, the sequels ruined that idea, so..." And yeah, I actually love that idea, and originally I thought that was going to be what Snoke basically was, something just like this was even alluded to being the case when, in the Aftermath trilogy, Palpatine apparently feels something very powerful, some powerful dark side presence out there in the unknown that he's trying to get to, but I guess that turned out to be Exegol. I don't know, not a lot from the Aftermath trilogy has been kind of brought up again elsewhere, and it even seems to conflict with a lot that's been established since. But anyway, yeah, I liked, past tense, the idea of Snoke being something like this, that he could be or could have been what's implied that Baylan might be sensing now, that he ruled one galaxy and was looking for another to conquer. That is certainly better than just being a pretty much literal puppet of somehow returned Palpatine. And it's also why you don't just bisect a new character without a second thought in one movie and then throw multiple copies of him in a vat in the next movie and imply he was a science experiment gone wrong. Because there was the potential to do something very, very interesting with Snoke. There's a reason why we spent 2 years theorizing about him. And it could have tied into what's going on now in the Mandoverse in a very meaningful and cool way. Though, kind of speaking of all that, with everything regarding this other galaxy, for better or worse, depending on your point of view, none of this feels connected to the sequels much at all. Nothing that Filoni is doing or setting up feels like it's trying to be a part of or a path to those films. Other than it's quite likely that whatever remains of Thrawn's forces after he is eventually defeated, that will almost certainly become the foundation of the First Order. But what's going on right now in this show feels like, and I think we all kind of anticipate there will be this huge battle against Thrawn, and almost certainly the remnants will be reorganized under him, the remnants of the Empire, and they're going to fight the New Republic. I think that's what we're all expecting to happen. Yet this feels like what's going on in this show, it very much feels like it's going to be even separate from that, which in itself leads to a bunch of questions, with the first one for me, and probably for anyone else who has read the new Thrawn books, being, why couldn't Filoni just make this new big bad threat the Grisk that were introduced in those books? Why does it seem like he's ignoring them and doing whatever he wants with Thrawn? But anyway, I have a hard time believing that Filoni is going to introduce something big and new in this brand new galaxy and not bring it back to the old galaxy. Which then leads to the question I often see about this whole time period, that if something truly big happens, something truly galaxy-shaking, why is it never mentioned or talked about in the sequel trilogy? And to that I would point out that only once in the original trilogy are the Clone Wars ever mentioned by name, and never is it really explained to us what they exactly are. We never see anyone talking about them, and they took place just 20 years before those films. And so something big taking place 20 years before the sequels, well, it's not impossible that it's not a constant topic of conversation, that it never gets mentioned, because people tend not to sit around and talk about that horrible, horrible thing that happened 20 years ago. Though that said, sure, there still should be, or so you'd think, there should be repercussions if something huge had happened. I mean, we may not hear the Clone Wars mentioned or are told what they are in the original trilogy, but the repercussions of them are still felt. The repercussions are the Empire being in control of the galaxy. And my guess, going along with what I said before about the First Order forming from the remnants of Thrawn's Imperial Remnant, is that whatever this great threat that's out there is, Thrawn will perhaps have to team up with the New Republic to stop it, and this is why there will be an armistice between them, between the First Order and the New Republic. Why they were allowed to have their own section of space, and why Leia had to form the Resistance to fight them. Those will be the repercussions of the great conflict to come, and they will ripple into the sequel trilogy even if they're not directly mentioned. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think about this one. What do you think is going on in this other galaxy, and how much will it affect what's going on, or will be going on, in the original Star Wars galaxy? Or maybe the whole story to come will simply take place in this other galaxy. Or, of course, you can always ask a question for a future lightning response video. Just start your comment off of Hey Thor and ask away. But whatever you choose to do, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.